But at the end of the day, Shedeur Sanders is an NFL player. The Browns took him with the 144th overall pick. In between number 1 and 144, there was that unprecedented slide, the prank phone call, the speculation, but finally a landing spot. And for a franchise that has been a revolving door for quarterbacks.
Obviously, Shedeur has kind of grown up in the spotlight. But, our expectation is for him to come in here and work and compete. Nothing's been promised. Nothing will be given. I may, hesitate to characterize it as a blockbuster. That's not necessarily how we thought of the transaction. But we are excited to work with him.
I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity. I don't ever focus on the negative or even think about the negative because the positive happens so fast. And it's a change of emotions. For me, it was just playing quarterback. That's what it's about.
With that QB room there in Cleveland, going to need some more seats. They got 5 dudes in there. Clearly not all 5 of them will make the opening day roster. 4 of those guys you see were not on the roster in Cleveland last season. Of course, that includes the 2 quarterbacks they just chose in Gabriel and Sanders. All right, for some more perspective on what actually happened here with Shedeur Sanders, we bring in Jordan Reed to SportsCenter. Look, I don't want to speak for the Browns, but their draft selections would indicate that at the quarterback position, they rated Dillon Gabriel ahead of Shedeur Sanders. Based on what you've seen from this young man, the evaluations, the people you've talked to, how does that make sense?
Well, Michael, quite frankly, it doesn't to me, just because Shedeur Sanders was my number 19 overall ranked player. Dillon Gabriel, I had a 5th round grade on. I didn't even think it was close as far as the evaluation between the two. And I know Dillon Gabriel has been more successful than Shedeur Sanders from a statistical standpoint. But if we're just talking about the physical traits and what Shedeur Sanders can be on the next level, I don't even think it's even close between the two. We're talking about a quarterback that was the highest rated passer, and completion percentage was 74% a season ago. Supremely accurate. He's very, very good from the pocket as far as playing within structure, throwing the ball down the field. He's really good in the short to intermediate areas as well. I definitely think Shedeur Sanders can still be a starter on the next level, even though he was a 5th round pick.
Again, that's no disrespect to Dillon Gabriel. Congratulations to that young man for going where he did. But the common sentiment was that Shedeur Sanders was ranked well above Dillon Gabriel, but the draft didn't turn out that way. But regardless of how he got there, Jordan, now Shedeur Sanders is in Cleveland. In terms of the personnel they have there in the quarterback room we just showed you, how do you see him fitting in with the Browns?
Well, it definitely is very crowded. He's entering into a very crowded quarterback room. They already have Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett at the top of the depth chart. And we just mentioned Dillon Gabriel, and Deshaun Watson is still on the roster technically as well. But Shedeur Sanders, he enters into a situation where I think he has a chance to play at some point. But the biggest thing for him is that he has to understand that he is a day 3 selection, and he can't come into Berea thinking that he was a day 1 selection. He has to have a day 3 mindset and understand that that's his role right now behind Joe Flacco as well as Kenny Pickett. Just take notes from those guys, especially just cling on to Joe Flacco, who was once again in a situation with Lamar Jackson back in Baltimore. We saw what Lamar has turned out to be. Not saying Shedeur is going to end up being like Lamar Jackson, but just talking about the role initially that he needs to play.
By the way, though, Shedeur not the only Sanders making it to an NFL roster. His brother Shiloh, undrafted safety out of Colorado, he signed a free agent contract with Tampa Bay on Saturday. Jordan Reed.
To play, to be the guy, if in fact you think that can happen quickly.
Offensive line, that's critical for Shedeur. Said it when Tom Brady was taken. The offensive line's got to protect him. He's got to have that fortress in front of him, as Brady did, allowed him to have that success. You think about what he had at Colorado. He dealt with adversity. He dealt with a muddy pocket. He's done it with everything NFL conditions leads you to have to deal with once you get to the pro level. Then you think about the character. I think this is the misperception. I think the fact of the matter is Deion was a great teammate. Deion practiced hard. They loved him in the NFL. They loved him with the Atlanta Braves in Major League Baseball. Shedeur, he will galvanize. He'll be that kind of guy. So again, the offensive line, if you're talking about the Cleveland Browns, that's the issue, guys. If they can protect him, obviously get the weapons, but up front is where they got to be strong. Allow him to do his job, and he will be a surgeon. He will pick you apart. I mean, you give Shedeur time. He sees the field. He's accurate to all levels, and he is a tremendous competitor, incredibly tough. So again, durable, having all the hits and stuff, and never got hurt. Okay? And he didn't have a running game. Not mention offensive line. He had no running game. So he was out there, and he led them to a winning year. He led them to an upset over TCU when he first got there, first game. Then the wheels came off. That Stanford game when the second half the lead was won at the half. Shedeur Sanders, to me, when you talk about the locker room and the players around him, they love him. Now, the perception from others outside based on what there's the noise, maybe they didn't like what they heard. I don't know how it was handled. You get all the word about this, that, and you think, well, they're just trying to hurt Shedeur. Teams are still throwing it out there. You don't know what was true, what wasn't. How Deion's going to operate. Deion's going to stay out of it. He's not going to be calling or threatening any coaches or saying, or there'll be a threat that Deion could take over. Deion's not happy. Deion's not going to say anything. Deion's going to coach Colorado. So a lot of this stuff, I think, just made no sense to me, kind of the negativity you heard over the last couple months.
The perception, though, that you talked about, that's all until the draft gets going, because it became his reality. The fact is, the 16th player on my board, higher on yours, right around 25 on Matt's board, went 144th overall. We've established a couple of things. We think he has a chance to legitimately compete for the quarterback job at some point in the relative near future. We've also established we like to fit in a Kevin Stefanski-style offense. Here's the question, and Reese, you kind of got us there at the beginning of this conversation. What lessons will be learned? And will they be used effectively to turn him into the player that I think we have some level of confidence across this desk that he can become? If so, this has a legitimate chance to be and this is not hyperbole here, the best value on day 3 so far because it's the most important position in all teams.
Hit rate the last 31 years for fifth-round picks at quarterback is 0. 0.
It's your guy, though.
0.
Buck the trend.
I'm saying up until now, the last 31 years, okay? Quarterbacks in the 5th round, you want the chart? Here it is, right here. I went back and looked at it.
All right, what do you got?
From 1994 to 2024, it's 31 years. What's that say?
0 for 43.
0 for 43 with a couple still to be determined.
Wow.
Spencer Rattler, one of those guys, still to be determined. Right? 1970 to 1993, hit rate in the 5th round, 19%, right? So again, 5th round's not the round to get a quarterback. Okay? It hadn't been proven. It was going back to 1970. That's a long time, right? Shedeur Sanders, 5th round pick. We'll see if he can do something that very few have been able to do.
The aberration, though, probably with a couple of notable exceptions, 5th round or beyond, is that very few quarterbacks were evaluated like this just on the tape at the same level that he.
That's the difference, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't a talent issue. This isn't a can-do issue. This transcended that, and that's why I think of anybody on that list that you have of fifth round guys. None of them had the skill set that this young man had. This is not about can you play the position. This is about do we want you to play the position for us. That's what this game.
Why wouldn't they, Lou?
Well, look, that's a whole nother discussion that we've had in many different ways for weeks
I would say
and
that
months now.
This is not one of the toughest quarterbacks you've ever.
But Mel, this isn't about. This isn't about.
Yeah,
this isn't about quarterback traits and quarterback characteristics, personal football characteristics. That's not about this. This is about. This is personal.
Has he had an
and
off the field issue? No, he has not.
Mel, you don't have to sell it to me.
No,
I don't know what we're talking about here.
You're right. You're right.
Yes.
You're right. But you know what? But Mel, the draft has spoken.
That's right. That's the key, Mel. It's not putting a value judgment on whether those who passed were right or wrong. They did.
Yep.
So now, whenever you're in circumstances in life, whether you like them, whether you don't like them, whether they're fair or whether they're unfair, you might have to deal with them.
That's
and
right.
now Shedeur Sanders has to deal with it. And for whatever reason, whether he played a minute, microscopic percentage, 0%, or it's a legit